So is the United States at fault? Well, today we are going to address that because for millions of Americans, living in the United States is becoming just too much. Prices are too expensive and wages are just not enough. But that is not stopping tens of thousands of migrants from attempting to make their way into the United States for a better life. Now, according to the Department of Homeland Security, this is becoming too much for many countries that are en route to the United States. For example, this includes Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, Costa Rica, even Panama. They're all finding it very difficult to house migrants as they make their way to our southern border. And according to the Department of Homeland Security and Customs and Border Patrol, they say that these countries are experiencing what they call enforcement fatigue. Well, that creates a little bit of a problem. Here's why. These countries are now asking the United States to support them and their limited resources, which means they're asking the United States for additional funding for these southern countries, as well as more enforcement here at our border. Now, this is going to create a problem. The reason this is going to create a problem is because of something called Title 42. But also, the United States and Congress are in a fight. They're fighting over something called a debt ceiling. Until we can address that debt limit and increase that ceiling or reduce spending, which does not mean give other countries more money, until we can address that problem, there's not going to be any additional funding going out to these countries to help them in their fight and their endeavors to try to accommodate all these tens of thousands of migrants that are coming through their country up here to the United States. Now, in December, the Department of Homeland Security, in one of their assessments, it said, and I quote, multiple countries in Central and South America reported having limited resources and are requesting assistance from the United States, as well as international partners to support migrants already in country, stating they are unable to provide migrants with basic social service requirements. These are things like just housing and food. That's it. Even some medical assistance. Now, this was the situation back in December, and it's currently still just as bad in January. But the big worry that many officials have is what happens when Title 42 restrictions are lifted. What is going to happen then? Things at the southern border are going to get a lot worse. And without additional resources at our border, more migrants are just going to come right through. Now, according to a report from the Customs and Border Patrol on December 31st, they actually said this, and I quote, there are at least 35,200 migrants in northern Mexican border cities waiting to cross into the United States once Title 42 concludes. Now, based on recent reports, Title 42 has been used to expel 2.4 million migrants, 1.4 million of them being Mexican nationals. So we've expelled 2.4 million people, and there's only 35,000 waiting at the Mexican border cities? Probably not. So even though our reports say there's about 35,000, there may be 35,000 in encampments, but if we've expelled 2.4 million migrants, the expectation is there's still 2.4 million migrants that are wanting to get into the United States. Now, here's another problem, which Mexico is wanting to be compensated for. Mexico has agreed to accept 30,000 migrants per month from 4 different nations if they are not accepted into the United States. But they have to go and attempt to be accepted into the U.S. Then if they're not, Mexico will accept them. 30,000 per month. Here's the problem. That there are thousands of migrants that are just waiting in Mexico in hopes that they can get led into the United States, and Mexico doesn't have the ability to house or feed any of these people. They don't have that ability. They don't have the funding either. Now, there are multiple migrant shelters that have simply just shut down due to the lack of funding or because they couldn't house that many people. There are dozens of migrant camps that don't have food or water, and for the people there, it's getting worse. The situation isn't getting better, it's getting worse. Here's the other problem. For these tens of thousands of migrants that are just waiting to get into the United States, guess what? Their health is most likely deteriorating. And as their health worsens, guess what? If we accept them into the United States and their health is declining, then it is on us to make sure we give them the health care that they need. Guess what that means? It means it costs the United States even more money. So the longer these migrants are waiting in Mexico or trekking up from Costa Rica or wherever they're coming from, right? The longer they're out there, chances are their health condition is worsening, and if that's the case, it's going to cost the United States even more money. This is why officials are calling for the United States to just shut this down. Shut it down. They say the U.S. needs to be clear that we're not accepting any new migrants at this time, at least until the public health emergency is lifted, which as of right now it's not. We still have like 80 some days left. And even then, and again, the public health emergency will not be lifted until the middle of April. But they say even after that, we have to be very clear that there are going to be restrictions. We will have limitations. But until something like this happens, officials believe that this situation is only going to get worse. This is why they say we need to shut it down. However, this is why I ask you, is the United States at fault? Most people are going to say yes. The United States is at fault because they have not been clear. They have not been clear that no, we are not letting more people into the U.S. When essentially that's exactly what we're doing, just on a limited basis. Now, here's what I can tell you. Moving forward, we are hoping to have answers regarding what's going on down at the southern border. But the problem is we will most likely not have any answers. So, according to the governor of Texas, according to many state officials, they're saying the situation is, well, unfortunately, going to get worse. And the only thing we can do is simply wait. That's it. Just wait. So, if you are worried about what's happening, well, there's good reason why. Because right now, we don't have an answer. We don't have a solution for all the people that are waiting at these Mexican border cities. We don't have a solution. You look online, you look on social media, and you see pictures and videos of thousands of people, sleeping in tents, right? They don't even have running water. They're drinking out of bottled water. They're washing their hands with bottled water, right? They don't even have enough food. So all these things, the expectation is it's going to get worse unless the U.S. completely shuts this down. But as of right now, that is not the expectation. The expectation is that the other countries, they're asking for additional funding to help support these people. Based off what we know from President Biden, he wants to lift Title 42 so he can accept more people into the United States. But again, this also means we will need additional funding here, not just in other countries. So, a lot of stuff going on, but as we get more information, I promise I will fill you in on all the latest news and updates. That is what we know at this time. Again, thank you guys for watching. Consider subscribing. I'll see you guys on the next one.